The world once again finds itself talking about Donald Trump, a man who never seems to leave the headlines for long. Whether it's his domestic shakeups, his symbolic gestures on foreign soil, or his bold claims about international peace, Trump has proven that his influence, love it or hate it, remains impossible to ignore. Over the past few days, a whirlwind of events has unfolded around him, painting a picture of a leader who is still shaping narratives, challenging norms, and commanding attention on the global stage. From South Korea to Washington, from architecture boards to ceasefires in Gaza, Trump's actions are making waves. Let's begin with what many are calling one of the most unusual moments in diplomatic history. During his visit to South Korea, Trump was awarded the country's highest honor, the Grand Order of Mugunghwa, and even presented with a golden crown replica. The event, held in the historic city of Gyeongju, had all the hallmarks of Trumpian pageantry. Cameras flashed as he stood proudly with the glittering crown in his hands, smiling alongside South Korean officials who praised his role in strengthening trade and strategic cooperation between the two nations. Behind the symbolism, however, lay serious policy discussions. Reports suggest that Trump's administration is negotiating a massive trade and investment deal worth an estimated $350 billion aimed at boosting both economies. This potential agreement, if finalized, could reshape U.S.-South Korea relations and establish Trump as a key architect of new global trade routes in Asia. The South Korean government's decision to bestow such an honor on Trump sparked plenty of reactions back home and abroad. Critics argue that the lavish ceremony is an example of how foreign nations are learning to appeal to Trump's love for grand gestures and optics. Supporters, however, see it as validation of his America First diplomacy, a strategy that they argue is delivering tangible results. The Golden Crown, in their view, is not just a gift but a symbol of global respect. The timing is also significant, as the administration faces mounting domestic challenges and a series of controversies that seem to follow Trump wherever he goes. While Trump was being crowned abroad, controversy was brewing back in Washington. In a move that caught many by surprise, he fired all 6 members of a federal arts and design review board. This board, a relatively low-profile but influential body, is responsible for reviewing architectural projects for federal buildings, monuments, and even parts of the White House itself. Among the projects under its oversight was the proposed Arc de Trump, a monument concept that had already stirred debate over its symbolism and aesthetics. By dismissing the entire panel, Trump effectively cleared the path for a new lineup more aligned with his vision of American classicism and government design. Critics were quick to accuse him of politicizing an independent institution, warning that it could set a precedent for reshaping federal agencies based on loyalty rather than expertise. The White House, however, defended the decision, stating that the new appointees would better reflect the cultural and patriotic values of modern America. The move fits a broader pattern of Trump asserting control over agencies and commissions that have traditionally operated at arm's length from the presidency. Supporters see this as a necessary correction to bureaucratic elitism, while opponents view it as another example of centralizing power. This domestic maneuvering unfolded against the backdrop of ongoing turmoil in the Middle East. Speaking to reporters, Trump insisted that the U.S.-brokered ceasefire in Gaza remains intact, despite reports of renewed Israeli airstrikes in response to militant rocket fire. Israel has the right to defend itself if attacked, Trump declared, reaffirming his staunch support for the country. His comments sparked mixed reactions. Some praised his clarity and consistency in defending Israel's right to security, while others accused him of undermining the fragile peace deal that his administration had worked so hard to establish. The situation remains volatile, with both sides testing the boundaries of the ceasefire agreement. Yet Trump's firm stance plays well with his political base, which has long valued his pro-Israel position as a cornerstone of his foreign policy. Analysts note that Trump's handling of the Gaza issue reflects his characteristic approach to diplomacy: direct, unapologetic, and often controversial. Rather than pursuing delicate negotiations behind closed doors, he prefers to make bold statements that project strength. This approach, however, has drawn criticism from those who believe it risks inflaming tensions rather than calming them. Still, even his detractors admit that Trump has managed to keep himself at the center of global discussions, a skill few political figures possess at his level. Back in the United States, Trump faces economic challenges that threaten to test the resilience of his administration. Government funding disputes have once again raised fears of a potential shutdown, with economists warning that such a scenario could cost the country up to $14 billion in GDP. The standoff, centered on disagreements over spending priorities and budget allocations, has left investors uneasy and markets jittery. Meanwhile, Trump's trade policies, particularly his use of tariffs as leverage in negotiations, continue to inject uncertainty into global markets. Some industries have benefited from his protectionist stance, while others struggle to adjust to shifting supply chains and retaliatory measures from trading partners. For Trump, however, economic turbulence is not necessarily a political liability. He often frames it as a necessary growing pain in the pursuit of American self-sufficiency. "We are rebuilding our economy for Americans, not for global elites," he told supporters at a recent rally. This populist message resonates deeply with his base, which sees Trump's willingness to confront economic orthodoxy as proof of his authenticity. Yet, behind the slogans, economists warn that prolonged uncertainty could erode investor confidence and slow growth heading into the next election cycle. Balancing bold reform with financial stability will be a delicate task for the administration in the months ahead. As these policy battles unfold, a quieter but equally significant debate is taking place in the media. Several prominent commentators have expressed concern that major outlets are softening their coverage of Trump and his allies, either out of fatigue or fear of backlash. They argue that this gradual normalization of his leadership style, marked by sweeping executive actions, aggressive rhetoric, and disregard for traditional checks and balances, poses a deeper threat to democratic institutions. The conversation has expanded beyond policy disagreements to broader questions about the future of American governance. Are the norms that once constrained presidential power eroding? Is the media doing enough to hold leaders accountable? These questions hang over the political landscape like storm clouds, and Trump, as always, stands at the center of the storm. His critics describe him as a master of distraction, capable of shifting public focus with a single statement or tweet, while his supporters view him as a fighter who refuses to play by the old rules. The truth, as often with Trump, lies somewhere in between. He thrives on controversy, harnessing it as fuel to dominate the news cycle. Each firing, trade announcement, or international visit is both a policy move and a piece of performance art designed to reinforce his image as a man of action. Even the Golden Crown from South Korea fits this pattern, an emblem not just of diplomacy, but of personal myth-making. Meanwhile, within his administration, insiders describe a sense of constant motion. Policy proposals are drafted, revised, and replaced at breakneck speed. Senior aides are juggling competing priorities, from trade negotiations in Asia to domestic budget talks to managing public relations around the Middle East crisis. The atmosphere is said to be intense, with Trump personally reviewing details that previous presidents might have delegated. Some see this as micromanagement, others as hands-on leadership. Either way, the results are visible, headlines dominated by Trump's name day after day across every continent. Observers note that Trump's current strategy seems aimed at consolidating his image as both a statesman and a disruptor. The South Korea trip, with its mix of royal ceremony and hard-nosed trade talk, was a masterclass in that duality. The dismissal of the Federal Arts Board underscored his willingness to challenge bureaucratic norms. His comments on Gaza reaffirmed his uncompromising foreign policy posture, and his domestic economic rhetoric reinforced his populist brand. Each move plays to a different segment of his audience, but contributes to the same overarching narrative: Donald Trump as the dominant force in global and American politics, defying expectations and reshaping institutions to his liking. Still, not everyone is convinced this strategy will succeed in the long term. Some analysts warn that by concentrating power and surrounding himself with loyalists, Trump risks alienating moderates who value institutional stability. Others argue that the ongoing economic uncertainty could undermine the very populist appeal that sustains his political momentum. Yet history suggests that Trump's ability to survive controversies and turn setbacks into victories should not be underestimated. Time and again, he has transformed criticism into fuel, setbacks into slogans, and opposition into proof of his outsider status. The coming months will be crucial. The potential trade deal with South Korea could either cement his legacy as a pragmatic negotiator or invite new scrutiny over economic inequality and corporate influence. The federal board's shakeup could lead to a wave of architectural projects that bear his stylistic imprint, for better or worse. The Gaza ceasefire could hold and bolster his image as a dealmaker, or collapse, reigniting criticism of his foreign policy instincts. The economy could stabilize under his tariffs or falter under their weight. Each of these storylines remains in motion, and in each, Trump is the central actor, unafraid to steer the narrative. What's undeniable is that Trump continues to command attention like few figures in modern history. He has mastered the art of remaining relevant, weaving symbolism and spectacle into governance itself. His crown in South Korea may be golden, but it's also metaphorical, a reflection of how he sees himself and how he wants the world to see him. Whether it's reshaping federal boards, defending Israel, or fighting budget battles, Trump acts as if every decision is part of a larger show in which he is both the protagonist and the producer. As the news cycle moves forward, one thing is certain: Trump's story isn't fading from the headlines anytime soon. His influence, whether through policy, controversy, or sheer force of personality, continues to shape the political and cultural landscape of not just America, but the world. And for better or worse, the world is still watching, still debating, and still reacting to every move he makes.